party was going on late at night. A young man named Gary came to the party looking for a girl. After a while, he noticed a girl sitting alone. Gary went up to her and started talking to her in a flirtatious, loving way. The girl began to smile because in reality, she was an old woman who had taken a medicine a short while earlier that made her young again. They talked for some time, and soon the closeness between them started to grow. The truth was that Gary himself was also an old man. He too had taken a medicine to become young. A few days earlier, Gary had been living his old age. He had never been married, so he spent most of his time looking at girls on his phone. He constantly thought to himself how nice it would be if he were young again, so he could enjoy life with girls. Gary owned a photo studio. One day, while he was looking at photos of girls in his shop, a girl came in and said to him, "I want to get a photo taken wearing a coat because I'm an English teacher and I need a passport-size photo." Hearing this, Gary took a coat from the changing room and gave it to her. After that, he stepped outside the changing room himself. The girl went into the changing room and she created a huge scene in his shop, shouted at him loudly, and abused him with many insults before leaving. Gary also shouted something back at her. After the girl left, Gary became extremely angry because she had ruined his mood. Next to Gary's shop, there was another store owned by a man named Lee. Lee told Gary, "We've grown old now, and we shouldn't be thinking about girls anymore." But Gary considered himself young and didn't want to be called old, so Lee's words seemed useless to him. He replied, "Mind your own business. I'm still young, and After that, Gary went back into his shop and started reading marriage advertisements. Seeing this, his friend laughed loudly at him. Gary got angry, scolded his friend, and walked away. His friend tried to explain things to him, but Gary didn't listen. At night, Gary came back home. He began watching a movie of his favorite actress. Eventually, he tried to rest. We learned that Gary is still unmarried. The next day, a young man came into Gary's shop and got his photos taken in different poses. When he looked at the photos Gary had taken, he suddenly remembered something and said, "Aren't you the most infamous photographer in this city?" His words hurt Gary deeply and made him feel ashamed, but he tried to ignore them. Still, he couldn't hold back and said, "Do the work you came here for, and then leave." The boy took his photos, paid the money, and left. As soon as he was gone, Lee came to Gary and said, "A new club has opened in our city. We should definitely go there." Hearing this, Gary became very happy and agreed to go with him. When night falls, they go to the new club. There, they drink alcohol and talk. Gary says to Lee, "Hurry up and get me talking to a girl." Lee replies, "Stay quiet and sit down. I'll call someone." After a while, a girl comes and sits next to Lee. She is very beautiful, and her name is Susie. Seeing Susie, Gary's feelings start to awaken. The strangest thing is that Susie is also looking at Gary. A little later, we see Susie at Gary's house. Gary and Susie become... After failing, Gary talks to Susie and asks her. At first, Susie laughs at him, but then she says, "I've heard about a medicine that can make old people young again. That medicine is available in our city too, but I don't know where you can find it." After hearing this, Gary falls into deep thought. Now, no matter what, he wants that medicine. A few days later, a model photo shoot is happening in a new building. Gary arrives there and starts taking photos of the model. The new model is extremely beautiful. Seeing her beauty, Gary starts drooling and says to the photographer next to him. Just then, the model's manager comes and stops everyone from taking photos. At that time, the model needs to do her makeup. All the photographers stop and the makeup artist starts working on the model. But Gary's attention is still fixed on the model. As soon as he gets a chance, he moves closer to her and asks her name. The model says her name is Andrea. Gary becomes happy and compliments her, asking how long she has been doing this work. Andrea replies that it has been 1 year. Meanwhile, the makeup artist and others leave to give massages elsewhere, and Gary finally gets a chance to talk to the model alone. Gary tries to get closer to her. The model tells him, "I only choose rich people who have cars and bungalows. You look like a poor man, and on top of that, you're old." Hearing this, Gary becomes extremely angry. Gary becomes even more furious. Now he wants to manage her, but he cannot do it alone because his body no longer has enough strength. In anger, he wanders around the city. While wandering, his eyes fall on a medical store. Seeing the store, he remembers what Susie had told him. He then goes inside the medical store. A woman is sitting there. Gary approaches her and says, "I need a medicine that can turn an old man into a young one." The woman replies, "I don't have any such medicine." Hearing her words, Gary becomes upset and turns to leave. Just then, another woman comes out from inside and stops him. This woman's name is Lisa. She mistakes Gary for someone else and says to him, "I have prepared your medicine." She then shows him the medicine medicine and says, "This medicine will turn your old boss into a young man. I made it using very special herbs. But make sure you tell your boss that using too much of this medicine is dangerous. If he takes an overdose, could even cause his..." Listening to Lisa, Gary understands that she has mistaken him for someone else. So he quietly listens to everything she says. He really wants the medicine, so without saying anything, he takes it and returns home. That night, as Gary lies on his bed, he remembers what Susie had said. He also remembers what happened to him that day and how he lost his job. Filled with anger, Gary mixes the medicine with water and drinks the entire glass in one gulp. After taking the medicine, he falls asleep on his bed. The next morning, when Gary wakes up, the first thing he does is look at his face. When he sees himself in the mirror, he is shocked. The medicine has worked its magic. Overnight, Gary has transformed from an old man into a young one. This was something Gary had always wanted, and by pure luck, he had found the medicine. Now he was young again and believed he could fulfill all his desires. Just then, someone knocks on Gary's door. Hearing the sound, he becomes nervous and goes to open it. At the door, he sees his friend Lee. Lee asks him, "Who are you? Where is my photographer friend?" The young Gary replies, "I'm a relative of your friend. He has gone out of town for a few days." Hearing this, Lee leaves. A little while later, a model photo shoot is happening in a large building. Gary arrives there nervously with his camera and steps forward. Everyone is surprised to see him. When people ask who he is, he says that he is a new photographer and wants to take a few photos of the model. By now, Gary has become very handsome. When the model hears him speak, she allows him to take her photos. The new model's name is Mary. She is very impressed by Gary's youth and looks. Later, she invites him to her home. Slowly, Gary's life changes completely. He becomes so handsome that from time to time, he keeps taking the medicine so that his youth remains and no one discovers his secret. A few days later, Gary arrives at a party with Mary. At the party, he sees many girls. After looking at all these beautiful women, greed starts to grow in Gary's heart. But at the same party, he notices one girl sitting alone, looking different from the others. Gary goes over to her and starts talking to her. He tells her his name and asks for hers. The girl says her name is Natasha. She is also attracted to Gary after seeing him. Gary begins to like her. Later, he goes to her house and spends a night there. While the two of them are in bed, Natasha's husband suddenly arrives. Gary gets scared and tries to get up and run away, but the husband stops him and says, "I know everything about you. Don't worry, you can spend the night with my wife." In reality, the man was unable to give his wife a child, so his wife had chosen Gary. Gary is completely shocked, but after hearing the man's painful words, he agrees. After that, Gary spends the entire night with Natasha. The next morning, as soon as Gary wakes up, he looks in the mirror and sees that he has become old again. Natasha is still asleep. Without waking her, he quietly leaves and goes straight to the medical store from where he got the medicine. He wants to meet Lisa there. While talking to the girl sitting in the shop, Gary's eyes fall on a box. He quickly picks it up, believing that the medicine is inside it. Just then, Lisa arrives and explains to him that there is no medicine in that box. But Gary doesn't listen to her at all. He only wants his youth back and is desperate to look young again. Lisa tries to take the box from him. After that, he returns home. When he opens the box, he sees that there is only a very small amount of medicine left inside. Seeing this, he becomes deeply upset. He then puts his face inside the box and starts licking the remaining medicine so that he can become young again. While licking the box, he falls asleep. The next day, when Gary wakes up, he sees that he has become young again. He quickly gets ready and is about to leave when his friend Lee arrives. Lee now knows everything and realizes that this young man is Gary. Lee tries to convince him to stop all this madness and return to photography, but Gary refuses to listen. Lee tells him, "You hurt the woman at the medical store. I won't let you go." However, Gary is desperate to meet Natasha. After that, Gary returns once again to Natasha's house, where they spend the entire day enjoying themselves. The next morning, when Gary wakes up, he has a severe headache. He notices that Natasha is not on the bed. He gets up, holding his head, and starts looking for her. As he moves toward the bathroom, he sees an old woman standing there. When Gary asks, "Who are you?" the old woman replies, "I'm Natasha." Hearing this, Gary is shocked. Natasha explains, "I became young by taking a medicine, but yesterday, woman who made that medicine. Because of that, I don't have the medicine anymore today." Hearing this, Gary is filled with regret, realizing that in his desperation, he ruined everything. Suddenly, Gary also turns old. This time, Natasha is the one who is shocked, and the movie ends.